Welcome into Let's Go Racing with David Starr, episode 120. Dominic got it going here. Tyler Jones is out this week, but not a problem. We've got a great show on tap when we have Matt Kemp stop by here in a few minutes. ARCA racer this past weekend at Iowa Speedway and a couple of starts along the way in the 2023 season. We're going to hear a very fascinating story and his backstory coming up on today's show. David Starr, as always, joining the program. David, how are we doing this weekend? Fresh off a weekend out in Dallas, Texas.
Man, I'm doing good, man. It's fun to hear you, Dominic. You start the show. We're used to hearing Tyler Jones's really big voice, you know. So anyway, man, we're doing great. It's hot here in Dallas. It's been hot for a long time. I love the heat, and man, we got great hot weather. It's been beautiful, and just been busy working at my racing school. And but man, I hope you guys have had a great week yourselves.
And we're trying to stay out of the heat here, too. That heat wave that is just pummeling the Southwest. We're hitting triple digits here across New Mexico. And I'm sure very comparable temperatures throughout the Midwest. Our next person on the panel, Joe Laracuente. He's with WDXD 101.9 out of Tallahassee, Florida. Also owns DoorstopNation.com and has been on the panel before. Joe, thanks again for joining us this week here on Let's Go Racing.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate just hearing racing stories and talking with David. David has a bunch of stories, and it's just great to hear him talk. And I'm just so honored to be here again, filling in for Tyler. But I don't have that voice like Tyler has. I'm just a crazy person.
Right. Joe, I don't think any of us do.
No. And he should be. I said he should be doing voiceover work and stuff. Right. I said that he should be the new Tony the Tiger. That's what I said. But he should be the voice for Tony the Tiger. But no, I'm just a crazy person that commandeered the airwaves on 101.9. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a crazy person, but I'm thankful to be on here today.
Well, when I asked Joe to fill in a few days back, he's like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" He compared it to like when you set a raccoon in a room and just kind of let him go wild and see what happens. But I don't think we're going off the tracks. That's all good, man. Well, we're going to start with you this week, Joe, on the rain-delayed race at New Hampshire. So NASCAR pushes the race back because of all the rain on Sunday. You see Martin Truex Jr. come out with a dominating performance. Quite the race, 34th career win. That ties him for 25th all-time on the wins list with Kurt Busch. Martin Truex Jr. looking as good as ever.
Oh, definitely. And Monday Martin, as they call him, always gets the wins on Monday, right? But he was just dominant, and there was really nobody really there to get up to him at the speed. Heck, actually, when they about to give the command, he actually fired his motor right before they gave the command, right seconds before everyone else, and he just wanted it more than anybody. So, got that win in New Hampshire. 30 starts, and he finally got his first win in New Hampshire, just like he got his first short track win a few years ago at Richmond, where he raced all those years. And now once he wins, it just snowballs. You know what I'm saying? Like you were there when he won the 600 that year, when he led almost every lap. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. The dominating performance, led all but I think 8 laps in that race, the most miles in NASCAR history. And David, what a dominating performance here by Martin. I mean, leading into the weekend, you and I picked him on our weekly pick'ems last week, and we said Martin Truex was going to come out ahead on the race. He had led the equivalent of 3 full races before getting the checkered flag. And here was a winless guy in 2022. He goes and opens the season with the Clash victory, and he's got 3 points awarding wins so far. He's still undecided if he's coming back in 2024. But, David, I got to imagine when you're winning this often and this frequently, it's got to make that decision tougher on retirement or weighing that option on coming back. I feel like winning solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But, Martin Truex Jr., Joe Gibbs Racing, when you say Martin Truex Jr., former champion, Joe Gibbs Racing, I mean, that's a championship caliber organization, team. You can never count out Joe Gibbs Racing and Martin Truex Jr. Those guys have lots of speed week in and week out. Different circumstances, throughout the season has really had some bad luck. But, man, when they were hitting on all 8 cylinders, they're a force to be reckoned with. And, I didn't watch the race Monday because I was busy working, had a lot of stuff going on. And I was keeping up with it as much as I could. And one of the things that people were letting me know how dominant he was. And, it's always for Martin Truex, I guess if there's a race, size the Daytona 500, all the other big races out there, but there's one that he really wanted to win. It's always his home race, and Martin Truex Jr. being from somewhere around that New England area. So good for him. But man, it's not a big surprise to any of us, how dominant he was. And then Dominic, you brought up a good point. I guess we've been hearing a lot of different things. Is Martin Truex going to continue to race? Is this going to be his final season? None of us really know. And like you said, Dominic, winning fixes a lot of things, but Truex has won a lot of races. You just mentioned it. How many races did he tie? Who did he tie?
Kurt Busch at 34 wins.
Yeah, Kurt Busch with 34 wins. I mean, that's just a phenomenal career. And Martin Truex is just one of the all-time best. Done well for himself. There's so many different elements to why he would choose not to continue, or why he would choose to why he would continue for another season. It's all of us say, man, driving for Joe Gibbs Racing got all the funding and all these great sponsors, behind him and Joe Gibbs Racing, championship caliber team. But there's always lots of other elements that make a decision for a driver to continue another race. I think we talked about it earlier today. The schedule, and the testing, and the tire testing, and just the sponsor commitments, and having everything you could ever dream of that he has. It's hard for most people, fans, and people in the business to really step in Martin Truex Jr.'s shoes to understand. Sometimes people just get tired and they want to maybe spend a little more time with their families doing other things, and maybe they've made their financial side of things. Maybe Martin Truex got more money that he's ever going to need. And, you really don't know all the circumstances, but it'll be interesting for all of us to hear when it's right and the time for Martin Truex to come out, and him and his family will make the decision on, if he's going to continue to, to racing at the highest level of NASCAR racing, or he's going to, decide to step back and retire, halfway retire completely, so it'd be kind of interesting to see how that works. We know Kevin Harvick this is his final season, and, and Kevin, we talk about Kevin a lot. We'd like to see him win a race and a championship, and I'm not so sure. And I asked the question to you guys, Martin Truex wins a couple more races. He got so much momentum behind him, wins a couple more races and wins the championship. He might just said, man, I've done all I need to do. And man, y'all, it's been great. See you guys later. Who knows,
Absolutely. Well, Joe, I think Jeff Gordon said it a few years back that had he won the title in 2014, ahead of the season, before he announced he was going to retire the following year, that if he won the championship in 14, that he would like to ride off into the sunset. And Martin Truex made similar comments on that this week.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Go ahead. I was going to say, just like John Elway won the Super Bowl, he retired. And Peyton Manning, he won the Super Bowl, he retired. Saying people want to go out on a high note like other athletes have done in other sports,
Definitely. Fascinating conversation. We'll pick it up some more on the other side. But for now, we're going to introduce our next guest. We love to have cool guests on this show, and this week is no exception. Our next guest, I've personally known this man, I'm going to say a good 12 years. He's somebody I can call a friend, but really, really cool to see where his racing journey has started and where it's going. He hails from the great state of Michigan and has run in dwarf cars, has run iRacing, sim racing, and most recently in the ARCA Racing Series this past weekend in Iowa. That's none other than Matt Kemp. Matt, thank you so much for joining us this week here on Let's Go Racing.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Hey, we're stoked to have you, man. So you were telling us before the show started, going from dwarf cars to full body stock cars. I mean, tell us about that transition. How quick of a learning curve, or how steep of a learning curve is something like that?
Well, I knew it was going to be pretty significant, but yeah, I was pretty surprised, especially by the amount of power in those stock cars. I shifted to second gear my first practice out and I was like, I want to see what it's got. And I put the gas down and man, it lit up the rear tires. And I was like, holy smokes, this is sweet. Those dwarf cars got a really good power to weight ratio and they got they're super fast. Most nights we'll actually go out and like, you know, we'll be running top 5 in the modified feature, if we ran the same race. So those cars are already fast and got a ton of power, but man, those stock cars, I'll say they were everything I dreamed of.
Man, that's all you can hope for, right? The American dream and just making to the next level of racing. But take us back to the beginning for you, Matt. Where did it start? The passion for racing, for motorsports. Take us back to the very beginning and what it initially sparked that desire for racing and motorsports in general.
My earliest racing memory was probably back in, I don't know, I want to say it was 2004, but my parents went out to the Vegas race. And, as a kid, I was really into SpongeBob and watched it all the time. And my parents brought me back a Jimmy Johnson diecast with SpongeBob on it. And from that day, I was a Jimmy Johnson fan. That was my earliest racing memory. But honestly, my really, between life and everything going on, I really didn't get back into racing until a few years later. I started watching stop motions on YouTube and just happened to be your stop motions, especially. So it was, kind of getting me into the NR 2003 and online racing kind of thing with some of your NR 2003 videos and stuff like that. So yeah, you actually played a bigger part in it than you probably realized, but
Wow.
between everything. So yeah, no, just up until then, um, I mean, sim racing, started racing in 2012 at 13 years old and been racing about 10 years now and won my first championship last year. And it's obviously been insane this year. And I mean, 4 months ago, I would have told you I'm never going to start an ARCA race, and I've started 2 at this point. So I have no idea what's happening right now.
And I can tell you, David, this man right here is one of the best drafters you could ever work with. He and we ran a lot of races together, and I can't speak for Matt, but I can speak for myself. And I can say, David, that I was usually one of the last cars running, but usually if Matt was in the back, he and I would link up and hook up together. We pushed each other to a lot of races and a lot of wins. Similar, David, to what you and Ryan Vargas have at the Super Speedways.
Say that again.
Similar to what you and Ryan Vargas have at the Super Speedway style racing. That's kind of what Matt and I had on the sim racing kind of front. We'd work together a lot and really good teammate, really good at pushing, really patient. Because, if you're working with Dominic on the racetrack, you kind of got to be a little patient.
No, I hear you, man. It's like, it's real life, and, at these super speedway races, Daytona and Talladega, you want to give yourself and your team an opportunity to be there at the end. And, whether you just kind of cruise in the middle of the pack, give yourself a little bit of real estate in case something goes down, or you ride in the back, or you just go up to the front and just run the front pack. It's hard to, there's not really any safe place really, and you got to have a lot of racing luck on your side. But, over the years, falling back to the back and kind of cruising for half the race or 3/4 of the race and then making a run for it at the end is really paid off well for myself and others. But man, I hate racing that way. But it's just, whatever you got to do to be there at the end. And it sounds like, you guys might do the same thing on your, when you race Talladega and Daytona on your racing simulators, you know what I mean? So, Matt, just looking and seeing you sitting in your racing simulator, it's pretty cool deal. And I don't know too much about sim racing myself, but it's cool how popular it was during COVID when there was no sports going on anywhere, and to have NASCAR put sim racing on Fox was incredible. And it really put sim racing on the map. And just like yourself and Dominic and millions of other people, it really exposes our sport to, and opportunities in our sport to be a race car driver. And it's cool to hear your story, how you started on the sim and now you went to your local track and race dwarf cars, and now you're racing in the ARCA series. I mean, that's the American dream, hard work, lots of passion, lots of desire, a lot of want to, and anything's possible. So it's pretty cool to hear your story. And it's not, I'm sure It's not easy. It's not easy, but dreams. You got to dream big and go out there and accomplish them. And it sounds like you're on your way, man. So it's pretty cool.
No, I appreciate it. And it's exactly what you said there. It's just you got to want it and you got to work your tail off because, they don't go around looking for people nowadays. You got to, if you want it, you got to go get it. So,
Yeah.
and that's the part that, nobody really sees is all the work I put in over the last 3 to 5 years of just, knowing that, this is the level I want to be at. This is where what I wanted to do. Stock cars, that's where my heart is. I love dwarf cars, and I would not have an opportunity to race if it wasn't for Eric Hoffman and all the folks in the MCR dwarf cars. I'm convinced I wouldn't have run a single race over the last 5 years because I couldn't afford it. But they gave me an opportunity to run dwarfs, and obviously it's been amazing, and I have had way more success. I never thought I'd ever have a track record, and I have 4 now, and I just absolutely blows my mind just the way that things have gone the last few years. And and one of those was in a rental car, which is like the coolest thing ever. I feel like that's like the coolest thing ever to get to say. But no, it's just been unreal, really. I mean, just unreal. But I mean, there's been a lot of work that's gone into it over the last few years, and things have just kind of been paying off this year. But it's more than I could have ever imagined, truthfully.
Man, how does somebody set a track record in a rental car? You got to tell us more about that one.
So it was a rental race car. Right? It wasn't like I didn't go to Hertz and go out on the track and set a track record. But no, Eric's just got a great rental program. That was what he gave me an opportunity to come out and race in his rental car one night. And actually that was how I got started in dwarf cars because I'd been out of a race car for a year, came back and ended up getting a podium for my first time running. The third place car got spun out coming to the line, and I got, I was a little bit lucky, but it was nice getting that. But we scaled this car with me in it, this rental car, because usually I hadn't been scaled in the cars, but I went up to the shop and got scaled and kind of got everything right in it, and we went to the racetrack and broke a rear end, and because at the time we had like these 8-bolt rear ends, not quick changes, so we broke the rear end in qualifying one race, and I actually still qualified fourth that race, so the car was really fast already, but he just had another gear that he threw in there, which happened to be the right gear, and the next time we went there, it was really fast, and we ended up setting a track record with that same car, so it was like, man, I just couldn't believe it, but it was really sweet.
Hey, Matt, what don't downplay dwarf car racing. Those cars are short wheelbase and lots of power to consider how much car weighs, and they're not easy to drive. You know what I mean? So any kind of racing, street stock, bombers, dwarf car, legends car, bandoleros, man, it's a stepping stone. And it gives you what you need, to enter the corner, get the car to rotate in the center, and then forward drive, and it's racing, dude. It's real, and look where it's gotten you to. I wanted to ask you, what racetracks, when you do race your dwarf car, are you racing at, and how big is it?
So the biggest track we run on with the dwarfs is the 4/10 mile out over at Birch Run Speedway on the east side of Michigan. So it's kind of a travel racing club, so we go all over the place. So we're in Indiana, Michigan. We used to go into Illinois a little bit. But some notable tracks that we run at, Flat Rock, that's one of my favorites. Kalamazoo Speedway, South Bend Motor Speedway, just a bunch of tracks all over the state of Michigan. We used to race at Toledo. Just don't do a whole lot of racing there anymore, in general. But yeah, so we're all over the place. We go from 4/10 miles down to small quarters. So that's pretty much all we run on.
And man, so SpongeBob got you interested in racing, huh? I heard something about SpongeBob. That's kind of a new one for me, but your parents went to Las Vegas and got a Jimmy Johnson diecast car and had a SpongeBob on it, and that's what sparked your interest, huh?
Wow.
Well, it's my earliest racing memory. So, in terms of, actually knowing what really sparked my interest in racing, I'm not sure, but I'd imagine that probably had something to do with it. That's the first thing I can really remember racing wise. I still have the diecast actually. It's in rough shape though.
That's all right. That's awesome. So, what's your next race? What's the plans moving forward for you?
Well, I know that I'm running the dwarf car this weekend. We've got a doubleheader. I'm not sure I'll be able to make both races because I've got some other conflicts on Saturday that might keep me from the track on Saturday. But I'll be running at Birch Run on Friday, and then um, in terms of the ARCA thing, I just like the last two, I have no idea. So um, I didn't think I'd be at Iowa a week and a half ago, and then we ended up being at Iowa. So who knows?
And
Well, man, that's
even
awesome. That's
a few
awesome.
weeks prior to your first ARCA Star, I mean, tell us how that all came together. And Andy Hillenberg, you were telling us before the show, but like a deal like that coming together and their team called Fast Track and going from dwarf cars to ARCA certainly is a fast track experience. So how did that all play out together? Did you call him or how did it all play out?
Yeah, so actually, I'll be honest, it kind of came together by accident because I really wanted. Once they announced Flat Rock last year, like I said earlier, that's one of my favorite racetracks, and I've had probably the most success I've ever had at any other racetrack. I don't think I've ever finished outside the top five at that place. I just love it. It's just been a great place to me, and I love the place. So I was like, man, I got to figure out a way to get into this Flat Rock race when they announced the East race there. So, um, I'd been working on trying to find sponsors and stuff like that, and actually had a LMC, Lake Michigan College came on board. That's actually the community college that I attended a few years ago, and uh, had a great experience there, and I really liked the folks there, and got in touch with some folks I knew, and just happened to come up with a deal. And I mean, it was just before the Flat Rock race. I called Andy and just like, hey, this is how much we got to work with. Is there something we can do? And he's like, I think we can do something. And we talked about it, and we almost made the cut for Flat Rock, but ended up not quite making it. And then I worked my tail off to come up with a little bit more and figure out something for Berlin. So um, things just kind of came together because he was like, well, we couldn't run Flat Rock. Let's try to run Berlin. So, I still really have a big desire to go run Flat Rock. Hopefully they bring it back again next year. And man, I'm going to be working my tail off trying to get into that one because I want to run that one worse than any of them. But yeah, no, it kind of came together by accident, to be honest with you.
Man, and these two starts you've got to make, you get to have a lot of family, a lot of friends on hand, a lot of Matt Kemp racing fans in attendance.
At Flat Rock for sure. At Iowa, I don't think a single person knew who the heck I was. So, yeah, no, it was pretty cool. But um, having some friends and family out there, it's yeah, it was really special.
Well, I
Well,
know once you get more starts under your belt, more and more starts will keep coming. You know what I'm saying? It's going to snowball. Because if you look at any racer I've talked to, even David can attest early in his career, once he made a few starts, the ball kept rolling. He made more starts, right, David?
that's right.
Right.
And man, I think what Joe's saying is, when coming from the I racing stuff, I know there's a lot of people out there, thousands, millions. I don't know. You guys know more than I do. I think it's you might be surprised how you're inspiring other people that are iRacing too, that really,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, they're pretty damn good iRacer. Maybe they have an opportunity to go out there and run Legends cars or Dwarf cars and kind of follow in your footsteps. So, I wouldn't be surprised if you had, 100, 200, 300 people up in the stands, kind of paying attention to what you're doing because, what pretty spectacular to go from iRacing to dwarf car to a ARCA car. That's amazing, really. It's a great story, and it gives hope to a lot of young men and women out there that want to be racers too, that are starting on iRacing. So hopefully your story and your career will inspire them to follow those in your tracks as well. You know what I mean? And you're just now getting started. So the sky's the limit. You got to go create opportunities and get some great partners and be kind of cool to keep up with you and to see where you're going to end up next year at this time. It's but and like you said earlier, man, it's not easy. We got to have a lot of passion, a lot of desire, a lot of want to, because you got to go create opportunities, and you've done a really tremendous job doing that. So good luck to you.
Oh, heck, I appreciate the heck out of it. And I'll tell you, if I can do it, anybody can, that's for sure. So I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
certainly appreciate it.
So, I mean,
And
I've
man,
asked you too, when you were behind the wheel at either of these races, mid races, there ever a point like, holy crap, I'm in an ARCA race?
Yeah, I remember at Berlin, my first few laps in the race, racing around other cars. Practice was one thing, all right, but actually getting in the car during the race and racing around other cars, it was like, this isn't real, man. This is iRacing. There's no way this is real. This just does not, I can't believe I'm here right now. And I mean, it happened at Iowa too, but Iowa I was, a little bit, I kind of settled from the first one a little bit, kind of, it'd been a month removed, but yeah, definitely could not believe it. Mid race. I mean, I literally was looking at the wall, looking at the marbles on the track and everything. I'm like, this is not real. There's no way. I just can't believe it.
Now, all these people you got to race against over these two races, who sticks out the most? Who was maybe the toughest competitor or the toughest car to get around when you were on the track?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Berlin, I was just trying to stay the heck out of the way. I'm like, I'm just here, man. I can't believe I'm here. I just don't want to cause any problems. Now at Iowa, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try a little harder today. And so I was working hard and racing my teammates actually pretty well. Tim Monroe, actually, all those guys on Fast Track are pretty good. So yeah, it was fun racing against all those guys, and then yeah, I don't know. It went by so fast. I can't completely remember everybody I was around. It's just it goes so fast when you're out there. But yeah, it was so
It
cool.
don't, it don't matter. You're just trying to pass every car in front of you.
Yeah,
So it doesn't
yeah,
matter who the hell it
exactly.
was. We ain't worried about who the heck's driving it. You're just trying to pass them, We don't care who their name, who they are.
Well, you aren't joking either because I passed I think it was the '01 car and I thought it was the 10 or vice versa. And I didn't, I'm like, "Oh, I've been passing, he's been hanging out all day, just chilling." So I've been getting around him and it turned out it was the other car and I was like, "Who the heck am I around? I don't even know." So it was yeah, and I was up to 12th at that point and I was like, "What the heck?" I went back and looked at the results. I'm like, "Dang, I didn't know I was running there."
That's funny.
Do you get to have any
David, what was
interactions
your
with?
first?
Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
David, yeah, I was gonna ask David, what was your first Truck Series race like when your first very race in the Truck Series? What was that like, David?
Man, it's amazing. It's a lot of emotions. A lot of emotions still today, 25 years later. But for me, looking back way back then, I raced pretty hard with Bobby Hamilton Sr. And
Hmm.
later on ended up being a great friend and a really, really tough competitor. And, I watched him on the Cup side, watched him on TV for years. And then going to my first truck race and racing with him, literally trading paints, bumping, racing with the late, great Bobby. Bobby Hamilton was just amazing to me, you know what I mean? After a while, these people, they're your heroes and you idolize them but they're just racers. They put their jeans on like we do, and they created opportunities. They're just hardcore racers and gotten some good opportunities. They're really good, but that was probably one of my first memories of racing somebody that I watched on TV a long time was Bobby Hamilton in my first race. But it's just cool. I mean, whether your racing started way back then or you race today, it's still for me uh, and like Matt, is still very humbling, and you really have to feed yourself because I mean the dream is massive. People don't realize how it's not an easy task. You know what I mean? And it's a little bit different today's world of professional auto racing. You got to bring something to the table, bring sponsorship, brief funding. But it's you got to go out there and work hard like Matt's doing, and the sky's the limit. You never know where you're going to end up at. But it's cool to hear Matt's story of how he started with iRacing, and then just as last week raced at Iowa in the ARCA race, pretty impressive.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. Go ahead,
But
Joe.
David, when you first raced that Truck Series race, whose truck was it for?
Um, I was racing. That truck was for a Rear Morrison professional
Hmm.
drag racing team. They're the winningest pro stock Chevrolet pro stock team in history. Rear Morrison,
Hmm.
and the guy that drove their pro stock car, which was my teammate, was a guy named Bruce Allen.
Hmm.
And so yeah, but that's who took me truck racing for the first time ever was Rear Morrison, Buddy Morrison. the late great Buddy Morrison was like a dad. Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So Matt,
Yeah.
I got to ask. I love asking drivers this when they win a race and they're in the press conference. I'm going to ask you the same question. So let's say 60 years from now, you're sitting in the rocking chair and you're thinking of these first couple ARCA stars, or especially the first one. What do you think you're going to remember the most about this whole experience?
I can tell you one of the things that I'll remember the most is actually, going to Iowa. And I mean, definitely that experience I told you already about, just not feeling like it was real at Berlin, because it really did not. It was so unreal. But Iowa for sure was one of the coolest experiences of my life too, and just actually getting up there and really feeling like I was really in the race. I was racing people. Berlin, like I said, I was trying to stay out of the way, but Iowa, I felt like I was actually racing guys and having just an absolute ball. I was actually pulling into pit road at one point, and there was a car spinning on the track, and right next to me, and it was like, holy cow, I can see him spinning out, and it's like, this is just, I don't know, it's just cool. I've been behind a bunch of wrecks before, so it's like it's nothing new, but it's just different environment. It's just cool as heck for some reason. And then when I was pulling out of pit road, it felt like I was on iRacing again at Iowa, because the pace car was actually sitting there at the end of pit road, and I'm like, caution's out, pit lights are red, and I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta beat the pace car, whatever, I don't know. It's just cool.
That's so awesome, man. Well, and so obviously you're going to continue racing, and you got the dwarf cars going on. So what would you say over the next maybe 2, 3, 4 years would be some attainable goals and some big goals that you have in mind?
I'll be honest with you, Dom. I have no idea. My life right now is as crazy as it's ever been. It's changing at a faster rate than I could have ever imagined. A lot of ways good, but a lot of those ways I don't know if they're going to be good for racing, So it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to keep working hard at it, but I just don't know how many more opportunities I'm going to be able to come up with. But I'm certainly going to try, and it's been such a blast, and I hope that my opportunities this year and what I've been able to do in my limited starts and limited track time, that hopefully it can create some more opportunities. But you just it's hard to say nowadays. Like I said, both of my deals, like I didn't know I was going to be in Iowa a week and a half ago, so I wouldn't change it, but yeah, we'll just see. I don't really know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I don't even know what my life's going to look like 3 months from now, much less 4 years.
Well, and David, we forgot to mention too before we got started here, Matt and his fiance, they're currently planning a fall wedding set for October.
Awesome. Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much.
That's so cool. That's amazing. Well, I can just tell you, I don't know who sponsored you, who your sponsors were, but just make sure that you have their best interests at heart. Make sure that, when they sponsor you, that you do everything you can to make sure they get all the exposure and can see a return on that investment. And when you love on them and go out of your way to do everything you can to make sure they get the maximum exposure, you never know what, could have a lifetime partnership there, and those types of things are life changing for a racing career type deal, so absolutely.
No, for sure. And I appreciate that. And I do definitely try to, I couldn't stand asking for somebody to sponsor me and just putting a sticker on the car, because I know it's like, man, there's so much more you can do, you can really help them show some investment or some return on investment. So actually we had a pretty good opportunity. I got to run the exact same car at Berlin and Iowa. So it just opened up some great opportunities for me to push them further. That opportunity doesn't come very often where you get to do that. So, hopefully they were happy with that. I actually have a meeting with them tomorrow with some of them tomorrow to go run some stuff by them. So I'm excited to go do that and show them some numbers, and been working hard at it, so we'll keep doing it.
Well, good luck with that, man. We hope you have a long-term partnership there, and you never know, but if you go out there and just be very passionate and be real and truthful, and like you are, it all works out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it'd be cool to see in some more ARCA races this season.
Absolutely. ARCA racing driver Matt Kemp here on the show with us this week, episode 120 of Let's Go Racing. We're going to get to our news and notes here in a second. Joe Laracuente is going to take the reins on that this weekend. Joe, where do we begin? What is going on in the NASCAR world?
Oh man, we got a lot of stuff going on. You got Pocono this weekend. It's gonna be great. Hopefully that gets in. It always rains at Pocono, right? I don't want to see another rain delay. I'm telling you. I mean, I'm still drying up. I was in Chicago a few weeks ago, and it rained cats and dogs and maybe a few seagulls. You know what I'm saying? But no, it was. We hope for no rain at Pocono. I know it rains there all the time, but no, we got a great all the news and notes for this weekend. You know, we got this Brodie guy running for the Indianapolis Cup race for Richard Childress. He's from Australia doing the V8 supercars, just like SVG did, man. You know what I'm saying? He did great. So this guy can do great, even better things. And so we'll see. And, you know, at the Indy Roval race, it should be interesting with the Indy cars racing the day before and everything. And I was going to ask David, what do you think of the Indy Roval? You think they should do the Indy Roval, or do you think they should go back to the Oval?
Man, you know, my personal opinion is the first time that the Xfinity Series went to Indianapolis was magical. And, you know, I went to the first Brickyard 400 in 1994, was there with AJ Foyt. It was unbelievable to see NASCAR racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But for me personally, to run my first race there and all the Xfinity races there on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is just it's so surreal. You can't believe you're racing on this racetrack where all the Indianapolis 500, Al Unser, Bobby Unser, AJ Foyt, Mario. I mean, just Jim Clark is just on and on and on. You're like, so much history there, and it's just amazing. It was always one of my favorite races, and I was, I was really sad when they took the oval away from there and made it a road course, because I really thought just racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the oval was just so magical, you know. But NASCAR, you know, I take my hats off to NASCAR. They've done a lot of things outside the box this year and last year, which are working, and so I love that. But I'm excited to see that they're having a tire test back on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway oval, and I'm excited to hopefully that they'll bring back the Brickyard 400 on the oval, you know, and the Xfinity race as well.
That'd be cool.
If that happens, absolutely. And Matt, let me ask you this: seeing Brodie come in and run this race with RCR kind of feels like, you know, I'm not going to say they're copying Team Trackhouse, but certainly Trackhouse had success with SVG at Chicago, and you have another great New Zealander, Australian, who's really good in the supercars, coming over and running a Cup Series race. You know, you can relate to this going from one car to another. I mean, how big of a learning curve do you think Brodie's going to have here in a few weeks?
Well, I can tell you a couple of things. I think the next gen car, I think for SVG it helps a lot too, that the next gen car really just has a ton of similarity to those V8 supercars and just kind of how they drive. Obviously, driving with the shifter on the opposite side and everything. I mean, it's still super incredible, impressive that SVG was able to do what he does. But I had the pleasure of being teammates with Brodie actually on iRacing for a little while, so I can already tell you that guy is pretty darn good. So I'll be surprised if he doesn't go out and the Cup guys better be on their game that day, because I'm telling you, they don't want to get shown up by another supercar guy. 2 for 2 for those supercar guys would be pretty impressive, though.
So, David, if he goes out and he has a great run or even wins the race in his debut like SVG did, is that good? Is that bad for the sport? How does that look on the drivers? You know, because you had some of the drivers say that, you know, he's probably going to go home and say that we lost and we got our butts whooped. How much of a look is that within the garage and as a sport as a whole, David?
Well, I don't know if you know, from the driver standpoint, I don't know if you look at it that way. The SPG guy, it was a perfect storm, you know. I mean, the way the race played out with the like Matt was saying, the new next gen car is really similar to the Super V8 cars that they race over there. The track in Chicago was a track that none of the Cup guys have ever raced on before, you know. So there was somewhat of an equalizer there, you know. And the way the race played out, you know what I mean, with the rain we had early in the morning throughout the afternoon, the race getting started late, NASCAR really during the race, you know, going all the teams saying, hey, we're only going to run this amount of laps. They shortened the race during the race when people already had their strategies worked out. I mean, it was just a perfect storm. But the SP, what's his first name? I can't remember. What's the guy's name?
Shane Van Gisbergen.
I mean, guy was unbelievable. I mean, came. I mean, I don't know where he was, 18th or 19th, drove up to the lead. I mean, it was phenomenal, you know, and the way he was using the clutch and the way he was shifting. I mean, it was phenomenal. It was unbelievable. But that type of track with our next gen cars and everything, a racetrack that most of the Cup guys wasn't familiar with. I mean, it's just interesting how it all played out. Now, the guy coming in to drive for Childress, it's be kind of cool to see the V8 supercar guys from overseas come over here to the biggest racing series in the world and to compete at some of these road course races. It's going to be interesting and exciting to watch to see how it works out. But I don't believe the perfect storm will be the perfect storm that we saw in Chicago, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? A lot of the NASCAR guys have been running. I don't know how many years, the last 3 years, that the Cup guys have been running on this road course. So a lot of them are real familiar with it. A lot of them are good at it. In fact, I would think that the guy going to drive Childress's car, he might be at maybe a little bit of a disadvantage because so many other drivers have been competing on this track for years. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Absolutely. But exciting that, to see Childress give another V8 supercar driver an opportunity to come over here to America and compete in the world's largest racing series in the world, So It's kind of cool. And then what's neat about it is it brings a lot of new eyeballs, brings from overseas people, when you say NASCAR Cup Series racing, I mean, it's not just in America, it's worldly, it's worldwide. And it really broadens our fan base, So it's, what James did and all the people watching from overseas, it's just making our sport bigger and bigger and it's already humongous, you know what I mean? So right. I think Childress putting this guy in his car is really just great for the sport, and you guys know, we'll all be tuned into that race to see how he does. It's an exciting race anyway, you know what I mean? And we're hoping that lots of more new eyeballs come in, and hey, you never know. I mean, we might get some new sponsors from across the pond now that come over here and sponsors, maybe sure. Matt might get a sponsor from cross seas. I mean, it just creates more opportunities for us race car drivers. You know what I mean? It's a great thing, So I love it. I'm excited, and it's going to be cool to see how it all works out.
So, Joe, with all this in mind, what makes for a successful race? When we look at that score pylon at Indianapolis, the end of the race, what makes a successful day for Brodie Kostecki in that debut with RCR?
Oh, I would say just finish in the race, maybe get a top 15, which I'm assuming he will. I think to just keep the car in one piece, which I think he will, because the way that they are racing, even the way SVG race, they're clean racers and everything. And I was going to ask David is, with the new next-gen car and the old car, the way the V8 supercars are, they have like the 5-gear transmission where it's just up and down opposed to the H pattern, you know what I'm saying? What do you think? Do you prefer the H pattern or do you prefer the new next gen car where it's just a 5-gear thing?
It's interesting, because the V8 supercars, just I'm like you guys, I was just learning more about it, but it seems like the drivers over there, their race cars are super, V8 supercars, whatever they call them. I mean, it's very, very competitive, and those guys are pretty badass. They're pretty awesome. And man, they race hard from the time they drop the green flag to the time they get to checker. And when you come over here to America and step into our biggest racing series in the world, and some of the best race car drivers in the world that race in it, and you can beat those guys. I mean, it says how talented those V8 supercar drivers are. They're incredible. So Brodie coming over here getting an RC car uh, uh, will be interesting to see, just to kind of weigh out those V8 supercar guys. I mean, I don't think the guy's going to have any problems. And if you finish in the top 15 or top 10, I think that's a big success. But I think the racetrack, Indianapolis, the racetrack there. And I asked the question: How many years, Dom, have they been racing on the road course there at Indianapolis on the Cup level?
Since 2021, so this will be the fourth installment.
Yeah. So a lot of those Cup drivers, they're so familiar with the track. I just think it's going to be I don't think they'll get showed up like they got showed up there at Chicago. You know what I mean? But it's going to be interesting. But I think again, going back to your Joe, your question, I think the way the sequential shifting in our new next gen race car really plays out to the favor of the super V8 cars over there. It's the same ship pattern. You know what I mean? So I haven't had the opportunity. Hopefully, I will for the year end to drive the new next gen Cup car. But man, the racing's been incredible. I mean, no matter if they're on a road course, Daytona, wherever, the racing's been phenomenal, so pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. And to your point, Joe, talking about Pocono this weekend in the High Point 400, we'll go around the room here in just a second, but reading back some of the odds and what odds makers are saying for this weekend's race, Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. are your odds-on favorites at 5-1 to take the checkered flag at Pocono this weekend. Kyle Larson sits at 7-1, William Byron at 8-1, Ross Chastain rather at 12-1. Last year's winner who crossed the line in third place, Chase Elliott at 14-1. And the highest rated of any past Pocono race winner, you have to go to Chris Buescher, who's sitting at 6,600-1 entering this race. We'll go around the room. Matt, let's start with you. Who is going to win the High Point 400? Bets aside, everything, just straight up, who is going to win the race?
You know what? I don't know. I feel like for some reason, I know they're completely unrelated and it makes absolutely no sense, but I think Kyle Busch. I'm just going to say Kyle Busch. It feels right.
Like that.
Hey, he's a past winner.
Kyle Busch. I like that. Yeah, it's a new version of Kyle Busch. And I got to give my pick, but I was going to say, I talked to Kyle last few weeks and different races and stuff. This is a different Kyle. You know what I'm saying? And you can see there's an extra step in Richard Childress' step. You know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like the team has been revitalized, and it seems like Kyle is like got this new attitude, and maybe he's more positive or something. But even whenever he had the problems at Loudon, he wasn't like the old Kyle where he was yelling and stuff. It just seems like he's a happier version of Kyle. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So Kyle Busch, your pick there, Joe?
No.
All right, who wins the High Point 400?
You know what? Denny Hamlin. And he's gonna be the all-time winner of Pocono if he does win this, by the way. And if you ask Denny, by the way, he will tell you that he's the all-time winner at Pocono. But obviously the whole thing last year. But I think he's gonna win. Denny, any version of Pocono, even before they repaved it, he won there. And any version of car, he's won there in the back in the car tomorrow days. He won the back in the mid 2000s with that different car. He's going to win this version. He's just one of those guys where you're at that track, you know that he's going to be a force no matter what he's driving.
So there we go. We have King Denny Hamlin winning per Joe, Dr. Joe, I should say. David, we know if you listen to this show every week, more often than not, David has been picking Kevin Harvick every week. Does that hold true again this week?
It holds true, but I can tell you, Truex, man, they got a lot of momentum on their side, got a lot of speed. You can't ever count him out, and Joe picking Denny Hamlin. Denny, it don't matter what type of car, he's the master there at Pocono, and somebody that really needs to win bad to advance in the playoffs would be Chase Elliott. So, I mean, I know it's going to be an incredible race because there's a lot at stake. But I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick just because I love to see Kevin win before he hangs up the helmet there after Phoenix.
Yeah. Okay, I can totally see that. I can totally see that. And now I was going to ask David. You raced at Pocono, David. What's it like coming down that really long front straightaway into that corner first turn?
It's awesome, man. You got to get off turn 3. I mean, turn turn 3 is an important turn. Your car's got to really rotate good in the center, and you got to be wide open coming off turn 3 because it's so long, man. If you don't get off turn 3 very well, and man, it takes forever to get down that front straightaway. But man, if you can get your car working good, it turns in the center. You get back to the gas quick, and man, you can make that straightaway even longer. It's amazing how much speed you carry down that front straightaway. It goes forever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you can drive your race car way down in there, you know, and way down into the corner. A little bit of brakes, but man, what a fun racetrack, man! It's so much fun to race there. I've really enjoyed racing there over the years, and but man, it makes for great racing. It's exciting. I mean, it's amazing that there's a triangle racetrack. You know what I mean? It's like turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. This is like turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3. It's weird, you know, but it's a cool racetrack. And Dominic, how long have they been racing in Pocono? From the late 60s? When did they start?
Late 60s. I believe 1969 was the first year.
No.
And they were, no. What year was it?
No. The first Cup race there was 1973. Because the original schedule in 1973, they were supposed to race in Trenton, okay? And Trenton was taken off the schedule, and Pocono replaced it in 1973 when the modern era first happened.
Wow.
It's a cool track. I can tell you, because I've been there like 8 times. It is a fun race weekend to go cover. Even a few years ago, I'll tell you a quick story. They used to do media pace car rides where they would peg an Xfinity driver on Saturday and a Cup driver on Sunday, and they would take out a street vehicle and they would give you a couple laps to give you an idea of what the racers were going through. So Justin Allgaier is doing the Cup rides on Sunday and driving for H. Scott Motorsports at the time. And we had a Chevy SS. So myself, our managing editor at the time, Justin Malillo, get in the cars, the 3 of us, and I think somebody else. And Justin, he turns around, he tells us, "Look, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to be able to go that fast because they have some safety vehicles, but I'll try to do my best." And we're like, okay. So we all buckle in, and he punches the gas off the pit road, and we're already hitting 100 miles an hour going off into turn 1. And he avoids the safety vehicle, goes to the tunnel turn, goes in turn 3. And like you said, David, he made that front stretch just a little bit longer because he punched it down the front stretch. And by the time we hit turn 1, we were pushing 140, 150. I got a kind of a little view there, sitting there from the right rear passenger side, seeing about 140, 150 there on the tack. That was pretty cool. It was really awesome. Getting thrown in to the side of the car as it went off. But no, great racetrack. It's going to be a great time, I'm sure, out there at Pocono. It's only the second time now in recent memory that Pocono only has 1 race on the schedule. But I'm with you, Joe. I think Denny Hamlin gets it done. He gets redemption for that stripped win last year.
Right. Oh, so, definitely. He's going to be hungry. He's going to want it more than anybody, I think. And sometimes you just got to want it more, just like Truex last Monday when he wanted more than anybody. I was going to ask David they say that turn 2 at Pocono is kind of like one of the corners in Indianapolis, and turn 3 is supposed to be a corner at Milwaukee. Do you find that to be true?
Well, you know, man, when you go down that long straightaway, you're carrying so much speed. You know, use a little bit of brakes getting to turn 1, but you know, it's to me, it's not like an Indianapolis turn because you get in the corner there. It's really a lot of banking in turn 1 there in Pocono. It's amazing, you know, and really it's a fun corner because, man, you take so much speed in there, a little bit of brake, but you get that thing to turn in the center. And, man, once it starts turning, you're feeding it the gas. It's unbelievable the run you can get off corner number 1 back there on the back straightaway. And sometimes you can go in there and with too much speed and you just overdrive the corner and you're too freaking tight, you know, and that kills you down the back straightaway. But it's such a unique racetrack, you know, and the tunnel turn is bumpy. You know, it can be a challenge. The bump sometimes can free your car up. And a lot of times, you know, if your car gets through there and it turns good in the center, a lot of times you're tight off the corner. You can slap the wall, you know, but it's just, man, it's a fun racetrack. It's a racer's racetrack, you know, and turn 3 is so different from turns 1 and 2. You know what I mean? It's very flat and very challenging, but man, what a great racetrack. And it's fun to race on. And you can see the guys bump drafting down the back straight, you know, the front straightaway because it's so long. And Dominic will tell us it's probably the longest straightaway on the circuit. Is that correct, Dom?
Joe, you can fact check me on that. I believe it's through just over 5,000 feet.
Yes, actually, it is currently. But last 2 years when Road America's front stretch was a little bit longer, but Now it is, yes.
Now
Pocono
it
has
is.
the
Now it
longest,
is.
but yep.
All right,
It's
our last
amazing.
segment here before we get going here on Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Everybody's favorite segment. This is your chance to sound off and get in touch with us here on the show. This is where you send in your questions for David and the entire panel, if you so wish to. You can always send in your questions to davidstarpodcast@gmail.com or interact with us on social media, twitter.com/starpodcast and at facebook.com/davidstarpodcast. So we're going to go to the mailbag for the first question. And I think, David, you might know this guy. He sent in a question. This question comes in from Tyler from Dallas. And this question's for both David and Matt. Tyler from Dallas wants to know if David and Matt could race in any non-NASCAR series, what would it be and why? Matt, let's start with you.
Any non-NASCAR series, huh?
Yeah.
That's tough. I don't know, man. I really want to race in NASCAR. You know what? I'll take the easy answer. I love my dwarf cars. The MCR dwarf car series here in Michigan is just a blast. I've raced against some of the best drivers I've ever raced against in this club, and there's just a lot of great people in it. So I'd say this club.
That's awesome. How about you, David?
Man, it'd be kind of cool to get in a late model again on, a half mile short track late model race car and run a 100 lap race or 200 lap race. That would be awesome, and that would kind of be my choice. That's a great question. You want to jump in a dirt wedge car, late model car, be kind of awesome as well, but man, there's just all types of different types of racing. All of them are cool. It'd be kind of fun to get in a dwarf car or listen to Matt talk, because they're not easy to drive because they're such a short wheelbase. They're very temperamental. They just react so quick because they're so short base. But anyway, for me, it'd be a short track late model race at a short track somewhere. It'd be unbelievable.
So we have short track late model. We have the dwarf cars. Joe, if you were given that opportunity, non-NASCAR, what are you racing?
Oh, probably IndyCar. I'm always been a fan of IndyCar, even back in the day when there's CART was around and Champ Car Series, and I love IndyCar races, and I love the way they have the schedules, different ovals and road courses and street courses. And if I was into NASCAR, I'd probably be into IndyCar.
Absolutely. And I think for me, guys, I think what would be really cool to be a part of, you see the videos on Facebook and YouTube. I'm not even sure on the exact name of the league or the leagues or even how you go about doing it per se, but the stuff that Lake Speed used to do back in the day. And you fast forward to the people that run the tag carts, the tag go-karts that go 100 miles an hour and they race in Daytona. They race at Indianapolis. They race at Gateway. I think it'd be fun to be a part of a series like that where you're being a weekend warrior on the weekends, you're wearing the full fire suit and you're running the low to the ground go-kart that's going between 50 and 100 miles per hour.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
It'd be a lot of fun. Our next question comes in from
Dom's living dangerously, isn't he, Joe?
A little
right,
bit.
exactly.
A little bit. Well, speaking of dangerous, that's a great segue into this next question. This one is for both Matt and David. This is from Lane. Lane wants to know, what is it like to see a wreck happening in front of you? What's your brain processing and what are the thoughts as it's unfolding? David, we'll start with you this time.
Man, it's sometimes you can see it happening, but it's just you want to make a split second decision to not be involved in it. Sometimes you can get gathered up in somebody else's wreck, and for me, whatever lap they're wrecking on, I don't want to be involved in it. I want to race and have the opportunity to have a great finish or a win, and so when there's a wreck happening in front of me, you only have a split second to figure out if you're going high or low, and hopefully your spotters, they're helping you, but they either say go low, go high, you know what I mean? So you got to make a split decision, and once you make that decision, you got to live with it, and depending on what racetrack it is, sometimes there's a racetrack's got a lot of banking. If they're wrecking, they're going to fall back down to the bottom. There's all kinds of situations, but for me, it's just trying to make the right decision to be able to not be part of the wreck. You know what I mean? It doesn't always happen that way. It's just racing. You know what I mean? But man, I hate wrecking early on in a race or during the race. I want to give myself and my team an opportunity to have a great finish or a win. So I hate to wreck.
Well, you can't always avoid it. You can't always avoid it, but I mean,
No.
yeah, I try to personally, I mean, you kind of have to just prepare for it and always kind of expect it to be happening. At least from my experience, you kind of just try to predict it where it's going to happen. You can't always, but sometimes you got to shove it in a hole or you think it might work out. But if you see a wreck happening in front of you, I feel like there's really not time to think. You just kind of react and um, you like David said, you kind of got to live with your decisions. So and you got to make it like that. So sometimes you can't predict it.
Well, Joe, I think we can not from racing experience, but from media experience and shooting photos and stuff. Joe and I can tell you from example, you see a crash or a wreck on the track, you just start clicking with that camera and hope you get something good.
Oh, right. I was just in Chicago a few weeks ago, and gosh, who was it? It was James. Who the heck? Oh, Jensen Button. He was in the 15 car, and I was right on the last corner, like right in the entrance of pit road, and Jensen got clipped by, gotta say, Joe Logano. And he spun around. He came only a few feet of me in that wall, okay? And I was clicking away as a photo and the camera taking it, man. He was so close to me. I can hear it coming. I knew that I heard the tires squealing. I'm like, oh, man, I got the camera. And I saw him coming closer and closer. I'm like, uh-oh. Thankfully, he didn't hit me or anything like that. But, I mean, he was only a few feet away from me. It was crazy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like lightning fast reactions. Final question on the inbox as well. And this is actually for all of us. We'll go around the room on this one. This question comes in from Barbie. And Barbie, yeah, I don't know if that's a real name or a fake name.
Well, because the Barbie movie is coming out, right?
Maybe that's why they chose this name. Barbie wrote in and she wanted to know, guys, what is your favorite track? So, Joe, let's start with you. What is your favorite track?
Oh, boy. I don't know. That's a good question. I always love the road courses. I've always been a road course type guy. I love Sonoma. Probably I would say probably Sonoma.
Okay, Sonoma for Joe. David?
Yep.
Man, that's a hard question. You know what I mean? I love to race. It don't matter where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Whatever pays the most.
Man, Martinsville, Virginia is awesome short track. Very, very physical. Daytona, Talladega, Texas Motor Speedway, St. Louis, Phoenix. I mean, man, I love them all. I guess one of the things I would say is, the ones that, if there was ones I'd sit out on, before the others, be the road course races. You know what I mean? I love them
David,
all.
you're killing me.
No, I hear you, but I mean, I just, but yeah, I just love racing. You know what I mean? I don't care where we're at. Shit, it's fun, and the ones you win at, they're I'd say they're your favorites. But man, just be able to race at any racetrack is my favorite. My home track, Texas Motor Speedway, I love that place. But man, I grew up short track racing. I love the short tracks. Bristol, I like going fast. Charlotte, Atlanta, Kansas City. I mean, they're all awesome. And it's hard just to pick out a favorite one. You know what I mean? I guess your favorite is ones that you won at the most or your home track. And one of my all-time favorite was a racetrack in Bryan College Station, Texas, northwest of Houston, Texas, called Texas World Speedway. It was a 2-mile super speedway track. Amazing banking, unbelievable race. My favorite racetrack. It's been, bulldozed down, and now there's houses there. But that was my all-time favorite track, just because I grew up going there as a little boy and watching my dad work on race cars there, and amazing. But great question.
Did you ever race there?
I won a race there in 1997. Yes.
Yeah. ARCA race. Wow, that's cool. That's cool, man. I know it.
Yep. So,
how about for you, Matt? Your favorite track?
Really hard for me not to say Flat Rock Speedway, but I'll be honest with you. The 2 starts I've made in ARCA, I've been really fortunate to make it some really cool racetracks. Berlin was an amazing place, and Iowa was an amazing place. So obviously, in terms of the the big time tracks, I don't have a whole lot of experience, but man, I do love me some Flat Rock.
Perfect. And I guess
that's funny. That's great. Oh, David, before you go on, I asked Dominic this question earlier today, and Dominic doesn't even know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to ask David this. David, would you prefer Dynasty or Dallas?
That's awesome. Probably Dynasty, you know what I mean?
I figure as much.
Yeah. So, Dom, what is your favorite track?
I got to go Phoenix. If we're talking on the NASCAR schedule, that's the closest one that's been the drivable one from New Mexico. I mean, everything's going to be an 8-hour drive away from here, but Phoenix is about a 5-hour drive. And the local track here in Milan, New Mexico, which is the town next to Grants, Uranium Capital Speedway, went as a kid and had the chance to run a test session there in a hobby stock car in Ken Kurtz's vehicle a couple of years ago. So I think that place will always be special in that regard. And I can tell you guys just from that 8, 10, 12 lap experience, it was pretty cool to get more confident behind the wheel and getting a little faster. And you can feel the track shifting beneath you and having to change lines and stuff. It was so much fun. I would love to get back behind the wheel of it sometime soon again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Guys, this has been a great show and it's been a lot of fun. Matt, tell us and tell our listeners where they can follow along and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a website, mattkempracing.com, but you can I post most frequently probably on Facebook, just because majority of my folks I know are kind of on there, and then but I have Twitter too. I think it's Kemp Racing 5. Instagram, I think it's mattkemp.5. But yeah, pretty much Matt Kemp Racing on Facebook. I've got a YouTube channel too. It's I probably don't want to waste your time with those. I'm not great at making videos, but I've made some, so you can look at them if you want to. But yeah,
cool.
that's pretty much it.
That sounds good, man. That sounds like a great way to spend some time. And Joe, thank you so much for filling in on the panel again this week. And where can people listen to your show and what you're doing online?
I got so much stuff going on. It's crazy, I swear. But no, I'm on WDXD 101.9. I host an afternoon show there. You can go to WDXD.org. I also got my own site, doorstopnation.com, and I've been doing that for almost 20 years now. It's crazy.
Wow.
And I know it's crazy. And you know how it is. Once you get started doing something, I was just telling Matt as earlier on the show, once you get your first start, you get more and more and more, and then next thing you know, you're doing like 20 races. Yeah, I'm sure with David, when he first made his first start in the truck series, was it just a one-off deal that evolved into many more races, right, David?
Yeah, absolutely, man. We all got to start somewhere, you know,
Right.
But man, all of y'all done well to be where we're at. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It wasn't easy. Nobody gave us anything. It's just hard work, you know, that never give up attitude and, you know, a lot of want to, and, you know, you end up where your dreams are, you know? So, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. You keep pushing on and everything will work itself out. And guys, we're going to put the checkered flag out on this show, episode 120 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. New episodes drop every Wednesday on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Play Store. You can always leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Up to you. Take your pick. You can also interact with us. You can email us and get in touch with any of us at davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us along on our social media pages, facebook.com/davidstarpodcast, twitter.com/@starpodcast, and as well as YouTube and online at any of the previous platforms that we had mentioned. For Matt Kemp, David Starr, Joe Laracuente, I'm Dominic Ottagon. Thank you guys so much for taking a listen. Tyler's back in charge next week. See you.